Think of this, you've got $60,000 to spend on a hot hatch, but with so many great cars on offer, choosing just one seems almost impossible. But seeing which one is fastest seems like a great place to start. We're here at Winton Raceway because today, it's all about the numbers. In the interest of consistency, we brought in V8 supercar driver Andrew Jones to extract the best lap time out of each car. Andrew's laps are just part of our hot hatch mega test. Our car advice judges will be getting plenty of seat time too, and Paul will send all the cars down the drag strip to get their quarter mile, 0 to 100 and braking figures. Now, let's meet the contenders. Will it be Volkswagen's Golf R for those that want to go fast but don't want to shout about it? Or maybe Honda's Civic Type R for those that do? Now look, I know it's not a hatchback, but at this price point, to not consider an STI would be crazy. How about Ford's Focus RS? It's nearly as shouty as the Civic Type R, but has a huge reputation to live up to. The French are renowned for knowing how to make a small car fun, but sometimes this doesn't relate to actual outright lap times. But will the 308 GTI bring about some sort of a French revolution? And finally, the car that has everything to prove and nothing to lose. It's Hyundai's i30N Performance. Will the South Korean live up to the hype? But let's get these cars out on the track. First up, the Golf R.
So, Volkswagen Golf R. So, a lot of hype around this car, lots of sales also to go with that hype. So, probably justified. Always different when you take a car on the on the racetrack and you're back-to-backing versus other cars. It's a pretty fair comparison for me, or it is a very fair comparison. When you go across a bump, the car sort of has this nice floating feeling, but when you turn the steering wheel nice and hard and load the car up onto the outside of the car, it's almost like it sort of semi-firms up a little bit and gives you some confidence to load the car corner speed wise. Now, are you going to be doing this in your everyday driving? Probably not. The DSG gearbox is very good. The shifting nowadays for a semi-automatic, let's call it, is seamless and feels really nice, really smooth. The upshift particularly is nice and sharp using the paddles on the back of the steering wheel there, so that's cool. And what I mean by sharp is when I want the car to change gear and I pull the paddle, it will actually shift for me. So that's a nice feeling. Not all cars do that. The other thing that I noted with this car was that the brake pedal was very, very confidence inspiring. I could really lean into the brake pedal hard. I had confidence to pull the car up. The pedal's nice and firm, and it gives you confidence that when I'm on that brake pedal that it's going to stop in a hurry. It gives you this real push feeling. So all in all, it's a really good car. It didn't excite me as much as some of the others, but I could see how on the road it would be a really, really nice car to drive. Would it win the ultimate race? Only the lap time's going to determine that.
Getting the Golf R off the line was, as you'd expect, clinical. Launch control activated, 1 foot on the brake, 1 foot hard on the gas, sidestep the brake, and the car just tears away. It was quick, helped partly due to the fact it's the only self-shifter on the test.
I'm going to be completely honest here. I was a little bit skeptical getting into this car for a whole heap of reasons, and I probably shouldn't be, but I was. And for me, that's the honest opinion. I'll always give that. So sometimes when you see a car that has this amount of external fairings, there's sometimes more emphasis put on all of that and the aesthetics outside the car, and not enough emphasis put on how the car will handle on a racetrack. And this thing has absolutely exceeded all my expectations, from little things like the steering wheel is slightly bigger than the other cars that I've driven already. The pedal positioning in the car relative to the throttle and brake position and space between the two. Little things like that, when you're driving a car like this in a hot hatch test, you want those things to inspire you with confidence. So, you know, for me, that's the ergonomics of trying to drive it fast. But that engine absolutely pulls hard. It was awesome. It felt like there was plenty of power here. I could hear it, not only feel it, but hear it as well. So those two, the engine note versus the pushback in the seat feeling that I got matched. Sometimes you get in a car and the engine note is really loud, but it doesn't actually do anything with that noise or that power. So I thought that was pretty important. And in terms of, you know, getting the car to the apex and turning the steering wheel, I don't know whether it was that the steering wheel was slightly oversized and it gave me a lot better feeling of what the wheels were doing on the road. But as soon as I turned that steering wheel, I knew that the car was going exactly where I wanted it to every single time. And I really enjoyed driving this car. I really, really enjoyed driving it. And it was, you know, a heap of fun, but also really confidence inspiring. So, you know, for me, Honda with their Type R Civic have done an immaculate job. It's really, really good.
There's no launch control here, but in R mode it does have a 3000 RPM limiter. With a slight slip of the clutch, the Type R was a big surprise in a straight line.
Ford Focus RS. I'm going to talk about its on-track capabilities to start with, because in terms of on-track performance, the amount of grip that this car generates, it just keeps inspiring you to lift that brake pedal earlier and earlier every corner I got to, and just turn the steering wheel and lean on the car like it was so confidence inspiring, so much fun. I love corner speed. I love that grip that the car generates, because for me that's the really cool feeling about driving a car fast, is how much you can load the car to get it through the corner as fast as you possibly can. Probably the disappointing thing was the power element. I felt like it took a long time to get going. We're in second gear for a long time, we're in third gear for a long time. Bit more power to balance out for the amount of grip that the car generates, and this thing would be an absolute weapon. Still is, don't get me wrong. In terms of steering, the steering is mega because of that confidence that the four-wheel drive gives you and the amount of grip that the car generates. So steering is really, really, really good, really good. So I had a heap of fun driving this thing. Pretty cool car, and I think it's going to be fast.
The RS does have launch control, but we found the quickest way to get it off the mark was to build to about 4000 RPM and just dump the clutch.
So here we are in the Subaru WRX Spec R. This car has so much motoring history and motorsport history that I expect a lot getting into it. First thing that I noticed was the steering was really quite heavy. In terms of the seat, I really would have liked to have seen this seat wrap around me some more. The older style Subaru WRXs that I have driven had a really nice hug wrap around seat and held you in. I'm finding myself absolutely banging my knee here down on this side rest, trying to give myself some support through the corner. Even though the steering became a bit lighter, I didn't feel like when I turn the steering wheel like this, it has a direct relationship to the tyres on the road. So what I mean by that is, I feel like there's a bit of a delay going on. I didn't really like that, I'll be honest. Gearbox is really nice though. It's got a nice short shift in it, very direct, and when you go from second to third, you can really feel that you're in third gear. I think that's important because that's one of those shifts for everyday drivers, that when you move from second over into third gear, you want to know that you've gone in there really confidently, and it gave me that feeling. Other than that, a bit of understeer came in the car, particularly at the sweeper on the higher speed stuff. When I turned the steering wheel, it just didn't go. Like I keep saying, the steering probably needs a bit of work for me in the next couple of models of Rexes that come out. But not bad, but just not as race spec as I expected it to be.
The STI didn't want to play ball. Maybe it was the sticky track. No doubt with zero mechanical sympathy and a red line clutch dump, you could stop it bogging down, but that's all we managed to get.
Interesting to note, a couple of things for me. Front wheel drive, so it has that distinct front wheel drive understeer feeling to it, but it's got a really good balance for a front wheel drive car. You know, you can get the rear to come around. It's not like the car is struggling to get to the corner right from the word go. You know, I can get to the apex, and if I push in with a bit too much speed on, I can recover it, so that's a nice feeling. Something that was a little bit weird though is when I turned the sport mode on, or push the sport button, it had this really cool feature where the dash, everything goes red, so it has this angry feeling to it. You know, you know in the driver's seat here that you have activated sports mode, so it goes from a white dial setting to a red dial setting, which I thought was pretty cool. The only downside to the dashboard and that feature is that the RPM gauge actually goes in an anti-clockwise direction, so the faster I'm going, I can't actually see the red line, and I miss the upshift a couple of times because of it. All in all, I think, you know, the engine feels really nice. In terms of handling the car, like I said, I can get it to the apex, and if I pushed on a bit too hard, I could still, you know, recover the car. It wasn't like it was bulk understeer and now I'm just stuck with that understeer. So I think Peugeot in this country is a bit understated, and I think that this GTI particularly is a really good car for me, and I quite like it. I've got a really nice feeling from driving it. Heap of fun.
The Peugeot is difficult to get off the line, but it has nothing to do with its mechanics. The design of the cockpit means you can't see the tacho, and there's no red line in sport mode, so getting the best out of it is challenging to say the least.
Couple of key features for me that stand out straight away. The N stands for Namyang, which is a reference to the proving ground that Hyundai used. So straight away it tells me, you know, that a lot of thought has gone into why this car has been named that way. In terms of car balance, for a front wheel drive car, it didn't feel like it at all. Sat very flat on the road. A couple of quirky little bumps around Winton that you really notice in a lot of cars, particularly through the fourth gear sweeper here. You know, the car, when it hit that bump, it didn't sort of roll more and get into this lazy state. It actually hit it. It felt really solid, and there was plenty of grip on the other side of that bump, which I think for me is really, really important. It feels like a lot of time and love has gone into making this car feel not only really good to drive on the road, but racy on the track. And I mean, the other thing that was very, very noticeable was the note of the turbo when I got off the throttle. I love that noise. I feel like it, you know, again, it feels racy. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with this. I'll be interested to see what the lap time is like relative to the other cars, because it does feel really, really good.
One of the easiest cars to get off the line, and even with traction and stability control turned all the way off, the i30N completed its acceleration and braking testing with zero drama. After a full day of punting these 6 around the track, it's results time. Okay, no beating around the bush, guys. Who came last? Who's in 6th position?
I reckon it's French car.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking STI.
Yeah, or STI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't keep us in suspense.
At the time of 1 minute 43.74,
Oh,
Really?
i30N.
really?
There you go.
This is rigged. Oh, the French have come in and done something there.
Okay, 5th place. Who do we think?
French car again.
Focus.
Focus.
I'm gonna follow.
Focus. Okay. Wow. Wild card. We ready?
Yes.
Time of 1 minute 43.33.
I'm not surprised by
Too
that.
far off.
Yeah,
There
I'm
we go.
not surprised by that. And it's actually pretty impressive on the Hyundai's part because it's front-wheel drive. So.
Yeah, and it's 4/10. Yeah. Okay, guesses for 4th place.
French car.
Everyone saying the French car?
Volkswagen.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
thinking the Golf
Volkswagen.
R. Yeah.
Okay, here we
I'm
go.
gonna say the Peugeot.
Oh, there it is.
Hey.
The French car.
Thoughts?
It's probably not terribly surprising, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1.6, but it's quick.
Yeah. It was a time of 1:42.50.
It's a good time.
So these are all fairly close together.
Yeah, that's another, what's that, 8/10.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
So we're in the top 3. Guesses for 3rd.
Volkswagen.
Golf. Has to be
Yep.
the Golf.
Yeah.
The other
What's
two
the
were
Golf?
weapons.
Okay, it's a time of 1:41.74.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's not bad. It's an impressive effort because that thing to me felt a little sloppy, but I think once you actually have someone that knows how to drive, it's probably better to.
One area it was really, really strong was in the braking, and I feel like that's where it made up for all its joy.
Gotcha.
How's this? Even between the all-wheel drives and the front drivers.
Yes.
And it's down to a front driver versus an all-wheel drive car.
Exactly. That's a surprise.
Yeah.
So it's down to 2. What are the picks? What are we thinking?
Honda.
Yeah, the Type R.
Honda.
Honda
in
second.
Second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can we caveat this by saying that the Focus does have like semi-slicks on it?
Yeah.
So regardless of which results the Honda ends up in, that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was a 1:41.09.
Hey.
Civic.
That's a quick time.
There
Yeah.
it is.
Even quicker, Focus RS, 1:39.76.
139?
1:39.76.
That thing is impressive.
The rocket.
How did you find the brakes on
And
that
I
thing?
feel like it made all its speed through the corner. I know you guys were saying all afternoon that it had huge amounts of horsepower, but
Yep.
it feels heavy. It feels lazy engine-wise.
Yep.
Where I feel like it was ridiculously strong was just corner speed-wise. You could clear the brake, turn it in, and just lean on the car, and it would hook in really well.
Well, now that you know the results, let's do a round robin here. Which one would you pick?
Well, I'm the most surprised about the i30N, to be honest. It felt much better than the lap time. Maybe you need to put a different driver in it and give it another run.
Yep.
But it felt like a really good car.
Okay, Kurt.
If I was going to pound around all day in one of these cars, it would be the Type R.
Oh wow, really suits you as well.
Andy?
The Focus RS for me. It's just a crazy car. I love
In
it.
blue?
Yeah.
Jez?
I think toss a coin and I'd take either the Type R or the RS, but it's going to depend on the day and the mood. Probably the RS and the wet and the Type R any other day.
Yeah, Paul?
I'd be Mr. Korea and go the Hyundai i30, I reckon.
I'm joining you, mate. Well, with pretty much racing rubber, plenty of power and an upgraded front diff, it's no real surprise that the Focus RS took the win. A big surprise was the front-wheel drive Civic Type R, which goes to show that with a perfectly balanced chassis and a brilliant front diff, you can still get the job done even without all-wheel drive. Maybe all those wings actually do something. And at the other end of the field, the i30N. Sure, it's not the quickest car on track, but it'd be right up there if we were judging purely on fun factor. Which brings us to part 2 of our test. How do these things go for pure bang for your buck out on the open road? Stay tuned.